how to handle revisions and changes to pet portrait commissions. So hi, I'm Sema Martin. I'm a pet portrait artist and have been for the last 10 years, and I'm here with these daily vlogs to give you some help and advice when it comes to your pet portrait business. So when it comes to revisions, that's when the client has asked you for any little changes or dramatic changes to your drawing, either throughout the process or when you have finished the drawing. So something that I like to do with my customer is to make sure that we have very clear vision from the start of what I can produce. So I would say that the most important thing to do with your client, no matter how easy or how detailed, always do a mock-up. And so a mock-up is something like just mocking up roughly either an image or a description of exactly what you're going to produce. So say a client has given me a picture of their dog and they've said, I want this drawing of the dog, no background. So I personally would go away, go onto Canva or Photoshop, take out the background, make sure the composition's right, send it back to them and say, are you happy with this? Do you approve so I can start? So even if it's just as simple as taking out the background, because they've said that they want a plain background, you need to show some sort of visual or descriptive thing of what you're actually going to do. So even if you don't have the ability to create a mock-up, you can reply saying, okay, so you want this picture with no background. Do you approve? Do you give approval for me to start the commission? And it's just as simple as that. So that would give you both a good starting point in terms of communication. They know what they're going to expect and you know what you're doing. So then again, throughout the process, I like to give little progress pictures to my client as well. But mostly when it's, at a sort of finishing stage. So say I've just finished doing the head, I've just finished doing the background, whatever it is I'm doing, I would have given it to them at like that finishing step, because as a non-artist they won't necessarily know the difference between, like, say, ugly stage and finished stage. If you're showing them your actual process of these here, I've blocked it all in now, they're not going to understand that that's just the blocking in stage. It's not the details, it's not the finished bit of the face being complete or the eye being complete. So make sure you understand from their perspective the steps in how they're seeing the progress, rather than your perspective of steps of seeing the progress. So I like to send them either the finished eyes, the finished face area, the finished head, then the finished body, and then any other finishing touches that I'm doing. And that's sort of the stages that I normally show my clients. And that also gives them the ability to say, actually, can you change the color of this, or can you add this, or can you take this away? So I've had some times where they've wanted the pupils a little bit bigger on some of the eyes, like say the actual photo itself was in very bright sunlight, so the cat's eyes were, slits, they're very small pupils, and the customer actually wanted it to be a bit bigger so they look cuter and how they normally look, I guess, every day. So instead of just saying, okay, I'll do that and then do it, I asked, okay, do you have a reference image? Because I want to make sure, because every cat size is also different. So I want to make sure that the pupil size that they have in mind is correct. Never assume anything. So don't just go in and make them really big and then they're like, actually, that's too big now. You want to be really sure as to the corrections you're making. So always ask for an example. So I asked for an example. Do you have a picture of your cat with the pupil size you're thinking? They sent me a picture, and then I made the corrections and they were very happy with it. And that's all you need to do in terms of corrections, especially little corrections like that. Never assume, always ask for a picture. Another time they asked me to add in a ball, so the dog's favorite ball. So again, I ask, can I have pictures of the ball with the dog as well, so I can see proportions, because again, you don't know how big that tennis ball is compared to the dog or anything like that, but they do. So instead of wasting your time and drawing it out, they're saying it's too big or too small, ask for a picture. Can I see a picture of the dog with the ball? And then you know proportions of adding the ball in place in the photo that they've chosen. So it's really, really important to stay clear, stay concise, and be really, I guess, open-minded as well with their requirements, because sometimes they're trying to create their perfect image of their pet in their mind, but it won't necessarily look how you want it to look from an artistic perspective. But because you're not the client, they are, that's when you just need to be a bit open-minded in terms of what they want and reproducing what they want, creating what's in their mind. Other corrections, so say you finished the piece and they've decided that they want to do some sort of drastic change. I personally have never had this issue because I've been so clear throughout. There's been changes sometimes, so sometimes they've decided actually they don't want that kind of background, they want a different kind of background, like to make a slight change. Maybe it's a slightly different effect. Or once I tried to do a foreground, they decided they no longer wanted the foreground. So that was actually quite tricky to take out, especially with colour pencil. But I managed to do it and it looked so much better in the end anyway. So dramatic changes, make sure it doesn't put in too much of your time. They've already paid for your time. Well, they should have already paid for your time. So you don't want to add more time into it that's basically unpaid, if you get what I mean. So make sure that the changes they've asked for is easy to do, is not gonna, dramatically mean that you need to start again kind of thing. Because if you'd been clear throughout, you shouldn't need to start again. It shouldn't be that dramatic of a change because you've both been very clear to each other throughout the commission process. If you do ever get to the point where it's finished, they've loved it throughout, it's finished, and then they decided actually I don't like it, then that's a very tricky situation, and it really depends on how the communication has been. Like, really think about it. Have you been clear? Have they been clear? If they've just been very passive about it and then had a lot to say at the end, then it's something that you need to sort of be very clear with them that, you've agreed so and so at this time when I did this, you agreed that was fine. So you can't make those changes because it's already been agreed, especially when it's like a hard medium like coloured pencil. It's very hard to change very much. It's not easy to erase. It's easy to sort of add, but only darker colours and that kind of thing. So you can't really make drastic changes with coloured pencil. You probably could with paint. You can paint over stuff, that's fine. But I guess coloured pencil and graphite is a lot harder to make very big changes to. So it's up to you. You have to give a firm boundary, like this is what was agreed and this is what I produced. If they're super duper really unhappy, I had one client that was unhappy once when I had finished it. Again, it was my fault because I wasn't clear from the start. So if I had been clear from the start, the whole situation would have been avoided. But I did agree to draw it for her again and use a different picture, which she was then happy with anyway, after I did that. So talk to your client. What is going to make them happy? Is it just because they hate the picture? Is it just because the colouring is off? Ask for a different picture. See if you can adjust the colours. Is it because the pose just isn't right? It wasn't what they thought they wanted? So they personally wasn't clear. Maybe you didn't do a mock-up, or if you did do a mock-up, they still weren't sure. So I guess it's up to you in that situation whether you want to agree to draw it for them again, or you just say, sorry, this is what you've agreed. Especially if they've already paid, it's slightly not your loss anymore because they've already paid you. It's then up to them whether they want to pay for shipping, etc. If they really hate the portrait that badly, obviously you want good customer service. I personally would just see how it is in terms of, like, what is it that they don't like about it? Will it require me to completely start again? And then use your own judgment on that. But when it does come to feedback, try and be really open-minded about it. Try and be really polite, and also try and be really clear. So if they said something and you don't understand, ask them for an example. Do they have a picture of what they're talking about? One person asked for me to add more moisture to their dog's nose because their dog was going through a hard time. It wasn't as healthy as it used to be, and they wanted it to look more like it did when it was a bit younger. So again, I asked for a picture. You're not going to just randomly add a lot of moisture to a dog's nose, not knowing actually what they have in mind. So again, I asked for a picture. Let me see a picture of them when he was younger, so I know what to add, what it should look like, and that kind of thing. It's just, I'll always ask for an example, always ask for a picture, and be open-minded because it is their portrait at the end of the day. They're going to have it on their wall, not you. So it's up to you to recreate what they have in mind. And let me know if there is anything else that you want me to talk about in terms of pet portrait business. If you need any other help growing your pet portrait business, getting consistent sales, then please click the link below for the Business of Pet Portraits course. You can now download the prospectus and read all about it, and follow and subscribe. Thanks, bye.